And we're back. Jon Del Arroz here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, author of For Steam and Country, which I know it sounds weird being a steampunk book and something different, but For Steam and Country is a better Star Wars movie or book than The Last Jedi. It is truer to Star Wars. It's airships instead of spaceships, but you'll get a better Star Wars feel out of my book than you will out of this movie. So everybody wants to talk about this movie, and I might as well jump in on this. Obviously, at this point, you realized I did not like the movie. It was not something that I found to be worthy of Star Wars. And it's the problem. The problem I'm going to have discussing it is it's so jumbled and convoluted. There's so much going on, and I read one of the early reviews. It's like it's jam-packed with story. It's got a lot of elements that are just over here and over here and over here and over here, and it tries to distract you with so many elements, so you don't actually kind of follow along the basic, easy, simple plot, intentionally, I believe. So if you look at A New Hope, right? A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie, very, very simple plot. Farm boy is brought into this thing because of his destiny. He is one man and he can make a difference. All he has to do is believe. He has to have faith. He has to have his religion. He has to have his spirituality. And once he obtains that, he's going to be able to take down a huge intergalactic empire, a faceless sameness as an individual hero. You have the power. It's uplifting, right? And that's the whole point. And Empire, which this will invariably get compared to, it has some down points, but you still have the same characters who are uplifting, who are individuals fighting against this tyrannical machine, and they are doing what they can, and they're learning and growing in their faith as they go along. That's the entire purpose of it, right? So you look at The Last Jedi, and I don't know. I'm going to start with the Jedi religion stuff, right? The Jedi religion kind of got ruined by the prequels with the weird midichlorians crap, which didn't make any sense. But they still had, Lucas still kept his vision where the right thing to do is to reflect, is not to get violent, is to understand that the light is the light, and you want to seek the light. And that's the entire thing. The reason it all resonates, and the reason the original movies resonate, is because seeking the light is something we as humans want to do. And for the most part, this doesn't apply to people in Hollywood, which is where this becomes a problem. They are so out of touch with what it means to be human that they just can't even tell a story anymore. And The Force Awakens just was devoid of any spirituality, was devoid of any character, was devoid of any emotion, was devoid of any feeling, right? And the entire point was reach out with hope and feeling, reach out with feeling, faith. That is the whole Jedi way, the whole Jedi element that made a compelling world building out of Star Wars. And in this one, you go to it and you just realize your heroes did nothing. Your heroes were just useless in the scheme of things. There's light and there's dark. Once there's light, a dark of equal power or greater power is always going to show up. There's nothing you can do. It's all a waste of time. You're going to fail. It's worthless. You're worthless. And we watched, and very intentionally they brought us to Luke Skywalker, who was just like this dejected loser. He hated life. He's a nihilist. He just doesn't care. He's cut himself off. Even having experienced the Force so deeply in all the other movies and seen how just the faith could shake someone like Darth Vader and change the whole shape of the galaxy, he is just dejected because one dude turned out to be a bad dude. And that was it. And, it's his nephew or whatever, but by the same token, if you have that much faith that you are literally moving mountains with your mind, that's very, very difficult to make go away. And there was no emotional precipice where it would have made any sense in this context. And it just flies in the face of the theme of Star Wars, of the hope, of the individualism, and it is extremely depressing. Like it is pure nihilism, and there's nothing you can do. Your destiny is your destiny. stuff doesn't matter. They go into elements of the Force and being a Jedi where, they're saying, these are dead religions, let's make a new order, it doesn't matter. Very, very millennial people, mindset of folk who don't care about history, don't care about the past, right? And that's very much, that is the overarching theme of the movie, is we don't care about the past, you shouldn't care about the past, we're going to do what we want, and it doesn't matter, and none of this matters, F tradition. And that is the moral of this entire story for the movie, for real. And that just doesn't feel good, I don't want to watch that again. It doesn't, it adds no value to my life. It is the opposite of value, It is modern nihilistic consumerism degeneracy 100%, right? And it's that's just the Jedi element. Now the parts where it was nonsensical is Luke has all this, lack of faith and all that, and Rey is there, and Rey just knows all this stuff about the Jedi religion. She just knows. She's just smarter. She's smarter than Luke. She's more wise than Luke, and she's never done anything in her life except for be some chick on Jakku, like kind of struggling to survive alone, and then being thrust into this whole situation, right? And it just didn't make sense. What would have been cathartic as an audience, which would have really passed on the next generation of characters, would have been very easy just to have Luke act as a Yoda type. I know it would have been predictable and whatnot, but it would have been satisfactory to have Luke kind of out there feeling like he failed like Obi-Wan, but maybe we can change and have faith like Obi-Wan kind of had, and get that there. But that's the deal. All they really cared about is trying to show Rey is the best. Yay, woman, she's the best because she's a woman, I guess, because they never go into how she's good at what she does. They never show anything. It's just she is magically the bestest person ever, and you should just respect that. But because of that, there's no emotional ties to the character of Rey. And this happened in the last movie, too. There was just no reason to care about what happened to Rey. There's still no reason to care what happened to Rey. Yeah, she's an orphan, but they really didn't. Like in A New Hope, how Luke was stuck at his moisture farm, and you really felt for him. They spent time, and yes, it wasn't the most action-packed element, but they spent time really making you care about what happened to Luke as a person beforehand. Like Rey doesn't have any she doesn't have any distinctive qualities other than just being awesome. She's just she's the best woman ever. She's better than men. That's it. There's no other quality to her. And that makes it hard to connect with her as a character. Now, the only interesting part of this movie, I'm going to go into the best part of this movie. The best part of this movie was the little Force connection between Rey and Kylo Ren. And, they had to talk, they started developing something. This is the only part I actually cared about. I wanted more of this. I wish this was a little more in the first movie. They actually reached out and touched each other through the Force. That was really cool. What a nice development that was. I loved that slight element of the movie. I thought that almost what it did is succeeded in make Kylo Ren a compelling character and somebody I might actually care about, which he's the bad guy. So, but it didn't help with Rey. It helped with his character arc, and that was the only good part of the movie in my estimation. I'll get around to the Snoke part. So what happens is eventually Rey gets back to the super duper, new Star Destroyer that we can sell toys of, and she shows up in front of the Snoke dude who we don't really care about. I'm gonna dial it back again. Dial it back to the global. A huge problem of this is that it built off of the shoddy world building. And like I said, it's hard to organize my thoughts on this because the movie is so all over the map that I can't just linearly progress and talk about things very easily. And I think it's done intentionally so that people can't critically dissect it like this. But Snoke doesn't make sense. He does not feel like an emperor. I don't see his power. I don't see how he came to power. I still haven't seen what the Force First Order does. I don't see anything about the First Order that makes any sense in sort of a world-building perspective. Like, the Empire, you knew it was an empire, right? You knew that they had their reach, they controlled planets, they controlled this. There were throwaway lines that showed what planets they controlled and how they were doing things. There were people who worked as bureaucrats and systems. It was understandable what the Empire was, right? The First Order, I still don't know what it is. It's just some dudes with a Star Destroyer, and they're all white dudes, because I guess that's the point. But the shoddy world building in Force Awakens, which didn't really explain what's going on whatsoever, and this building off of that and not really giving us any more about that was a large part of the movie problem also. So I'm sitting there, and yeah, we've got these giant Star Destroyers up against the Resistance or whatever, and I just don't have any reason this is happening, or I don't know why they're fighting. I don't know anything except it's clear the First Order's bad and the Resistance is good, I guess. And even that gets hazy in there because they don't really explain why the Resistance is fighting and don't explain why they're good. And since the Force is kind of mumbly and Luke Skywalker isn't really a hero and Leia didn't really accomplish anything and then they all kind of were useless, is the Resistance actually a force of good? So somebody brought up on Twitter earlier that it was really just two big political forces making mistakes against each other, and that's just not fun to watch. And it's not fun to watch. So I still don't understand what the First Order is. I don't understand their reach. I don't understand what the point of them is. I don't understand who Snoke is. He was just some ugly-looking dude who has a lot of force power, apparently. And you go in there, there's no emotional attachment. And not like that. When the Emperor finally showed up, you'd heard so much about the Emperor. You've heard about how he's done terrible things, how he's oppressed people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to where when he finally was revealed, you were in awe of just like, whoa, this is a creepy dude. And his looks contributed to that. Of course, they made it look like that too, like Snoke. But the looks aren't everything. There's no depth to it, right? And I'll get to that in a second too. This is the weakest storyline of the movie. So Rey and Kylo have this really emotional, gripping moment, and they kill Snoke. And this was meant to be as like a surprise because they're not going to just follow the script. They were just gonna end it before the battle began, and I got that. And that was the climax of the movie. They did a force trick, killing Snoke, and it was the climax of the movie before the battles even began. What it did was it sapped all of the emotion out of the movie. Nothing mattered at that point, and I didn't care after that point. The lightsaber battle was it's like, it felt like he did this thing with Snoke to kind of end it, and then the executives came in and were like, Mr. Johnson, Star Wars needs lightsaber battles, and you don't have enough lightsaber battles in this movie. Can you add that into your script, please? And by please, we mean we're going to pull your contract if you don't add a lightsaber battle so we can sell more lightsaber toys. And so then after the Snoke thing ended and the big emotional moment ended and all that, then they had a lightsaber battle. And it was Rey and Kylo fighting together. It was all well choreographed versus these guard people, but there's no emotion to it. They weren't going to lose against guard people. I mean, come on. And faceless, nameless people, just for the sake of just having a visual, a shallow visual, and that is the name of The Force Awakens on with Disney. That's exactly all these movies are. Is you are, and they're telling the audience that this as they do it. You are shallow. And we're going to just give you shallow because that's all you deserve, and it's very blatant and it's disrespectful to the audience to be frank. But after that they go in and this is another interesting moment where Kylo's like, I'm going to restart this, join me, and Rey it seems like Kylo's had a moment where he kind of understands things a little better. Rey just like makes a knee-jerk reaction, no, it's terrible, and tries to fight him. And again, we're not told why Kylo restarting things and taking over is necessarily a bad thing. If he did so with Rey at his side and Rey's this perfect, wise, good person advisor who's going to help him out, like, wouldn't that make a pretty good thing for the galaxy? I mean, it'd be stability. I don't understand why that's bad. And but Rey fought it anyway. She just fought it for the sake of fighting it, and that's where the theme comes back in. We're just fighting for the sake of fighting. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to get better. It's just pointless. Everything we do is pointless, and that is stated to us over and over throughout the movie, which makes it very difficult to care. And that goes on. No, it was a terrible movie. It was so all over the map. Even with the bad, even with the sort of bad theming, the all over the map elements were just bad. The only part I liked was the Rey and Kylo dynamic up until that point where Kylo was going to restart the Empire and Rey just fought him for no reason. So yeah, we have no we don't know what the stakes are for anybody. Nobody understands this. And then I'll get to the main storyline, which is the Resistance, I guess, rebellion, whatever it is on the run. They're down to their last ships. They're like 4 or 5 ships. Now, from the last movie, they had a fleet, they had X-Wing squadrons, they had different planets, they had a whole, I guess, republic that they were fighting for. Like, I don't know what happened to get us to this point, and they did not even attempt to explain it. Suddenly, this Resistance is at a point where they're in dire straits, and because I have no establishing what they're resisting against conceptually, and other than First Order bad, which I'm just told, not shown, and I have no conceptual sort of idea of what the downfall was that caused this, which is very unlike A New Hope. A New Hope talked about the glory days of the Old Republic and how great it was, and the Senate was disbanded, and now we're fighting against this because this guy's an evil tyrant. And it was very clear. Now it's not clear, and we're not clear how we got here. It's just you just accept this. Accept this, audience. We're going with this because the plot demands it, and you will accept this. It's shallow. We're going to have a space battle now. And they had a space battle. The bombing in space, they had bombardiers in space. It didn't make sense. A lot of it just didn't make sense. And yeah, it made for some okay visuals at points, but it was just, it just had no emotion to it. We had this like Asian girl pilot of the bombardier, which we're supposed to care about. And, I would have thought if she made it to an escape pod and she ended up Finn's love interest person later on, showing her how great she was at first, whatever, and then had all that happen, that would have been great. But putting her in there and just killing her, and then, by the way, this is her frumpy sister who just hangs out and like cleans toilets, I guess, on the ship. I don't know. It's unclear what her job is. Like, that was a bad introduction to the character by itself. So I really didn't care about that. The frumpy Asian girl, I don't remember her name. She had no characteristics other than being a stereotypical nerdy frumpy Asian girl, and that was the whole point to her. Now on the other front, so we had that progress with. I'll get to the Finn in that storyline, which was by far the worst storyline out of the whole thing. Even Luke Skywalker's destruction as a character, at least there was something interesting to that. Like the Finn Asian girl part really made no sense and had no interest whatsoever. But the space fleet, right? Well, let's stay on the space fleet. Like I said, the movie just was all over the map. But the space fleet battles, so suddenly they're on the run, and they can track them through hyperspace, and they go through, and the Empire ships are following them, and they're shooting at them, and, okay, we're going to get out of range to where their weapons dissipate, okay? First off, just on the level of this, weapons won't dissipate in a vacuum. Nothing dissipates in a vacuum. It doesn't make sense. You don't have resistance in a vacuum. And okay, I mean, get that out of the way. Doesn't make sense. Now, it takes some time to get there, and we can dodge it, would make sense. And that would have been an easy way to resolve that without just, like, completely stupid fake science. And so that was bad. But they did this, and they just keep going, and they go and going, and it's boring. It was boring waiting, and, it made zero sense how they could just outpace these Star Destroyers. And this never happened in the past. They couldn't do this. And also, why are the Star Destroyers slower in space than, it gets to that. But anyway, And if they can just hyperspace, why don't they hyperspace in front of them and just cut them off? You know, I mean, there's just so many reasons this doesn't work. But or just, I mean, if First Order's this big, just send a couple other ships ahead of them, and then just like pinch them in. It takes 2 seconds to fix that. They didn't have to just slowly chase for hours for no reason, right? But oh well. But, you know, aside from that making no sense, it was low stakes because it's like, you know, they destroyed some ships and we don't care because we don't care about these people and don't know what they're doing. And then, you know, the ship just kind of goes on. This woman takes charge. And here's where it gets weird, because I know they're trying to do this feminism thing with Rey being perfect and Leia being in charge. By the way, Carrie Fisher's acting was atrocious. Like, I mean, she did a I mean, I don't want to rag on a dead woman too much, but she did a terrible job. She was not up to this role. She was not an inspiring leader in this. But you know what? We're gonna be honest here. Like, I liked her in the original movies. She did not. You know, she was not up to this. She could not do it. She couldn't handle it. Yeah. So then she gets knocked out or whatever, and this gets to the really. So the bridge gets blown out, everyone's dead, and that way we can get this purple-haired feminist lady in charge is the point of this. But the scene where she like floats out into space in a vacuum again, and then wakes up in a vacuum, and then uses the force to push herself back in so we can show how great she is with the Force, which in the last movie she never did that. In the first, you know, again, it was just never developed how she learned all these powers and became a magical super Jedi, like even better than any other of the Jedis. Again, just because I guess she's a woman, so she has to be a super Jedi. So all of a sudden she has Jedi, like Emperor level Force powers. I mean, that is like what she did was just like one of the strongest deals we saw in the Force, period. It was unbelievable. And then she came back, and it was useless. Again, it shows that it was useless because she just went directly into a coma and was useless. For what reason? I have no idea. I guess so they could develop this Poe versus purple-haired lady because they didn't want Leia fighting him like that, which doesn't make sense. You know, if it was Leia fighting him, you know, the audience probably would have balked at that because they were already going to balk at the way Luke is presented. So we got to make sure Leia stays perfect. So we'll take her out of the equation, just put in generic purple-haired lady in charge, who's there because she's a lady, like Leia was there because she's a lady. Now, what I got out of this, everybody's saying, you know, the casting choices are definitely feminist positive, obviously. Rey is, you know, Rey's like, you know, I mean, what's her name is, I don't remember her name. She's a plain woman, right? She does not have curves. She looks kind of boyish, very plain woman. Leia is, you know, I mean, she's, you know, Carrie Fisher was an older lady. She's got a purple hair lady, not an attractive woman so much. She might be if she wasn't done up like that, but who knows? Frumpy Asian lady, again, not an attractive. So they put in these hyper feminist, idealized, not attractive women in positions of authority, in positions of all this stuff, and that was their hype of, like, you know, we're going to show the world as we want it. We want the purple-haired ladies in charge, I guess. Is that the purple-haired lady's name? All right, that's her, I guess. The purple-haired lady and Leia together, with their choices and with all they did. So Leia was. Think about this for a minute in terms of their feminist storytelling. This is where they really screwed up, because it's really funny. Unless they did this intentionally, I don't know, but I don't think they did. Leia is personally responsible for letting the Republic be destroyed and for letting it become a resistance. And then under her leadership in the resistance dwindled from like a galactic spanning Republic type of thing to just a few ships. So she did such a terrible job in her course of leadership that she basically destroyed the Republic personally and destroyed the resistance personally. Then, when purple-haired feminist takes over, she doesn't know how to fight, doesn't know how to do anything, and it's very clear she doesn't, and she's totally incompetent, and lets the rest of the ships die in some like harebrained plan just to let things course the things here. So very weird, and definitely contra narrative to what they want to present. because you don't see why they're good, you don't see why they're there, you don't see them actually doing anything positive for the Resistance or for the Republic. You only see the negative, and then suddenly she goes all kamikaze on it after like, you know, they had to wait for her to tell everybody that was the plan for hours. Why? It didn't make sense. Now, now, right? She just wouldn't tell them why. It doesn't make sense, and so that forces Finn and Poe to take matters into their own hands. So they're going to get upon. They can disable the tracker on the Imperial Star Destroyer, but they need someone to help them. And another thing that just doesn't make sense and screws the flow of the world. Subplot with a new general. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So here's the Finn Rose subplot gets even worse. They I guess the Imperials aren't even jamming them. So if the Imperials aren't even jamming them, like, and they can contact this chick on a faraway world or whatever, you know, where her cantina is, why can't they just contact, you know, their allies in the Outer Rim or whatever, or contact some of their allies somewhere else on some other planet in the Republic to do a relay? I mean, they showed that they can contact other planets. In fact, they showed that they can just get to other planets, and the Empire wouldn't even notice them leaving. So why not just shuttle a few people out of those ships one at a time, disperse them on different planets, and call it a day, and rebuild later once the Empire's not in your sights? Easy. But no, in the convoluted, not making sense element of this, again, they call another planet, which, you know, apparently they can't call their allies until they get to some other planet to call their allies for whatever reason, but they can call certain allies. And then this ally tells them on another planet there is a dude who can slice into, he's like super hacker. And they're like, oh, great, cool, we're going to go get super hacker man, and he's going to come back in hack time. And so they do that, and they just leave the ship. The Imperials don't notice. All of the plot elements just suddenly don't make any sense whatsoever. But and this happens, and it's just like, oh, this is so bad. More than that, like, just think of the timing. And this was a problem in The Force Awakens too. And I at this point, it's happened enough where I think they're intentionally putting a middle finger to the audience, saying, you're just so stupid, we don't even care. Like, the whole Starkiller base and how it just shot across the galaxy, and, you know, things happened within seconds, and, you know, there was no travel time, none of that. They didn't even care. That happened in Force Awakens. Well, that happened here as well. We've only got a few hours left, but we're going to go to find a guy in a casino, convince him to come back with us, and then hopefully he'll fight for us, even though we have no idea who he is and he's never talked to us before in our lives, and get us aboard the Star Destroyer. And then we're going to do our thing on the Star Destroyer, disable it, and, you know, how many hours is that going to take? I mean, how many hours is it going to take just to get to the planet? If you can instantaneously go anywhere in the universe, instantaneously, that easily, again, it just, why are the Star Destroyers following like this? Sorry, I keep getting phone calls, and I'm trying to avoid this. All right. So that's that. It doesn't make sense. Finn, again, as a character, like, is just useless. He's useless the whole time. He just does nothing. He's just a slapstick comedy. He just falls over, bumbles over himself, does nothing. He's a trained stormtrooper. I guess that's why he's useless, because they're all useless too. But he is a totally useless character. And, you know, I mean, if this is a diversity push for this character, again, you know, like the women who are in charge, who are destroying the whole space fleet and destroying the Republican rebellion, Finn only serves as showing that he's incompetent and useless. So if your goal is to show how great diversity is, you are really doing a bad job here. Now, of course, the frumpy Asian girl is hyper competent at everything. Even though she just, like, cleans toilets on the ship or whatever, she's in awe of these heroes of the Resistance, because she's just I don't know what she does. She changes light bulbs, I guess. You know, part of the, like, low level maintenance team. She's a super genius, and she can do anything, and she's basically better than Scotty. Yeah, I'm mixing deals, but she's just awesome, and she's just, and we're just gonna accept that she's awesome, even though we've never heard of her before, and all we know about her is that she had a kind of cuter pilot sister who died, And there was no emotional connection to this character. She was there specifically for, and she's not here for American social engineering. The only reason she's a character in the film is Disney wants to throw a Chinese-looking character in there for the Chinese film audience. The Chinese film audience can be happy about it. Now, it's a mistake because it doesn't matter. The Chinese film audiences have bought Hollywood films forever, and they have bought Star Wars and are really into it. But whatever. But the whole point is that they care about China's market more than anything. But you know, Hollywood also says all Asians look the same, right? So they don't care. But that was the point of that. And she was just hyper competent in everything. She was great. She was better. She was the only spunky person who was really a hero in the whole thing, and it was like meh. So I didn't care about that. Then they got to this planet. Okay, so now all of our science problems with why they're doing this in this plot are a thing. They get to this planet. The planet is a casino. It's like a casino world from Final Fantasy 13, I think it was. There was a casino world on that in that deal, that timeline. And with chocobo races, they even had chocobo races in this. Somebody played a bit too much Final Fantasy 13. And they weren't chocobo. I forget what they're called, but big monster horse things. Totally debaucherous, degenerate. This is the only point they tried to show what's going on in the galaxy, and it was not a First Order versus Rebellion thing. They didn't show you why the First Order or Rebellion was bad or good. They just showed you that there's these downtrodden kids who like rich people just kind of step on for the sake of it, and that's what's happening. The 1%, man, edgy, and you know, it's just like, ugh, really, and you know, I mean. Aside from that, you know, they didn't even really get you emotionally invested in any of this because the kids were just kind of nameless people and they were faceless people. And even though they kind of helped them out and then had that little end scene with them where they had hope and then the rebellion symbol, like Green Lantern club ring or whatever, they were kind of nameless and faceless. And they were just fighting against rich people on a planet. And the rich people were selling weapons because that's what rich people do, is sell weapons. And they're selling to both the Resistance and the First Order. So the Resistance is supporting this bad society, rich people, but the good guys. Again, you know, there's just nothing to root for. There's nothing to care about, and that's where the movie breaks down and fails again. So a lot of ridiculous imagery in this. It looked really bad, and just ugly visuals and all that. Hold on just a sec, please. Yeah, I'm gonna unfortunately have to end there, but that's what we got, and just disjointed, ugly, bad all around. Nothing really to cheer for. So thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys soon.